For me, I know from my own public speaking coach in business compared to this, I nearly feel like I show up more because I'm representing someone else when I show up for myself. So I think about Aisling before I even do the work, that this is not just my baby, this is actually ours.
Most interesting part for me is that there is pretty much no difference between you in the podcast and you outside of the podcast, which for me brings so much joy.
So yeah, it's just people that we notice. We literally fall in love with people all the time and their stories.
Welcome to P&P, the Partners in Positivity podcast, where
Aisling Burnett
and myself, Sarah Harty, warriors of EBP, SBP, DHBs, that's emotionally bulletproof, spiritually bulletproof, divine human beings, aim to wake up and shake up the nation through positivity, humor, and shared wisdom.
Before we get stuck into another awesome episode, we just want to let you know that we have a donation page if you wish to support the podcast and help us to continue providing more amazing episodes for you. If you want to Google Partners in Positivity, you'll find our Buzzsprout site, and on there you can find a support button. You can click on that and support to your heart's content, whether it's a one-time donation or a monthly subscription. We really appreciate all the donations that we get. Thanks so much. Enjoy the episode.
Today, on the international stage of our PNP podcast, we have unique and supreme divine human beings which are here with us today. And these are the most amazing, glorious, gorgeous ladies who are professional podcast interviewers and the one and only creators of Partners in Positivity, Miss Ash and Sarah. Welcome.
Sofia El-Hatri, thanks so much. Oh my God, love flipping this around.
Yeah.
Thanks, Cal.
So, welcome to your own podcast series, ladies. So, in order for everybody who is listening to us today to understand why is that so unknown voice talking in the beginning of your podcast, ladies, well, my question to all of you guys is, have you ever wondered who are Ash and Sarah? Who are those people who spend the last over 1 year delivering every single week over 50 episodes of pure positivity to attracting the most amazing guests in their podcasts? How did they do that? How did they start it? Who are they? How did they meet? And how did they get the idea? And how did they get the strength and the courage to keep doing it all over and all over and all over again? Because I was so curious to know all these answers, and because we managed to get such an amazing connection with those beautiful ladies for the last week or so, this is why we all decided that it is about time to finally create an episode on the podcast itself with them as the special guests of their own show. How do you feel about that, ladies?
Well, it just feels so natural, really. It's kind of like how the podcast has gone from the beginning. We just decided that it was going to be born, and it was just really good flow. Everything happened as it should, and we're really excited to have this episode with you here today because we just don't know how it's going to go.
Sophia, it's actually very funny to be on the other side and be interviewed. Yeah, I actually think it was easier to interview people than actually have to express your own opinions and views and ideas about positivity. But on a couple of occasions over the past year, we had some people, including yourself, who flipped the lid and asked us a couple of questions, which was great. And we heard our own voices in a different way, and it was actually amusing, really.
Indeed, it is so amusing, and I want to thank you so much for the opportunity for me to be on this seat, on this hot seat, as the person asking the question. That's an honor for me. That's also something that I love to do, especially when we are the three of us. What did we say? We are saying that the universe is having a party, right? It's really amazing. So I will do my best so that we can serve the people who are watching and listening right now, so that they can know more about yourself with few intentions in mind. And for me especially, this can be a brilliant way to inspire more people like yourselves to also liberate themselves and to be free to do whatever they want. Because I know for sure that every start is difficult or not, that every journey is difficult or not, because it's just only the way that you perceive it. And this is how I would like us to start today. So can you please explain to our dear audience, to your dear audience, how did you start Partners in Positivity?
I'm going to keep laughing until I stop laughing, all right? Thanks for the question, Sophia. And it's brilliant to be doing this. I love sharing how dreams come to reality, and especially my own, which I fought so hard for so long. Because for me, I went to college, I did a degree, I did a master's degree. I spent time in so many different positions, in so many different roles and companies. For so long, I had over 30 jobs, and the time I decided in 2018, I believe, to leave a job and only go after passions was a huge, critical turning point for me in my life. I said, from here on out, I'm not turning back. I'm only going after passionate things, and this was one of them. But it wasn't something that I had in mind at that moment in time when I quit the last job, the 30th job. So for the podcast, how that came to be was myself and Aisling came to be friends through a fantastic travel club that we both joined at different points in time. We came to know each other back in 2017, I believe, and we were great friends from the get-go, and our friendship just developed over time. Aisling has a great mind for business. She'll share her own journey now in a minute, but she's a great mind for business. We both have the same level of energy in terms of positivity and a desire to serve the world. And we began with a project which was called Tap That Shit Out. Nice. We came together as a partnership in 2019 after being friends for 2 years, and I have a background in organising events and public speaking. Aisling has a background in healing and has certificates from all over the world for different things, but her favourite one was tapping, which is a self-help tool, very effective. My mother tried it, and we decided to run a couple of events in Galway. We named the event Tap That Shit Out, and we did a couple of events the end of 2019. While we were doing the events, we were together on a beach in Galway, and we randomly said, oh, maybe we should do a podcast, YouTube channel, different things. But in the midst of all that, we started nicknaming ourselves Partners in Positivity. Woo! Just like that. Running into the Atlantic Ocean, we were shouting, oh yeah, we're Partners in Positivity. Because with the feedback we were getting from friends and family and people that we met on the street was that we always brought some sort of joy in the moment or interest or left someone feeling better than they did before they met us. So we said, oh my God, maybe we could do more than we are now to serve the world. And a couple of months later, Aisling is very good on social media, very connected, not as much as me, or more than me. More than me, I'm barely on social media, but she was watching out for interesting personalities, and she'd already spoken to 2 people and asked them for an interview. Nice. And yeah, the ball just kept rolling, and we decided maybe an interview could be a podcast, you know?
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. I love everything that you said. And I remember that day on Silver Strand in Galway. Anytime, I love that I'm from Dublin and Sarah's from Galway, but anytime I went to Galway, I had been there before I met Sarah, but she was adamant to give me the best tour ever of Galway. I remember one time I went to Galway and she literally swept me around the whole city in one day. I was like, I've seen more of Galway in this day than I have on any of my other trips here before. But that beach is absolutely gorgeous. If you ever get the chance, go there. So there we were on Silver Strand saying we're partners in positivity, and it just kind of stuck. So Sophia, actually a few of the events that we were at together when I was doing ambassador, I actually randomly start interviewing people on my story, asking, I was just so fascinated with people and how we are and how they've overcome stuff and the wisdom that they have in life, because everybody has unique wisdom and lessons that they learn. So I was using my Instagram sometimes from time to time. I had no structure with it, but asking people little tiny interviews, like sharing the fascinating people I met around the world with people, their pieces of wisdom. And we were like, we need to have something consistent, a way of getting this out to the world. And when me and Sarah came together, like she said, I had gotten in touch with one guy on Instagram. He really caught our attention because we were going to speak about positivity. He had a video called Fuck Negativity 101, and we were like, I think he's definitely a person for a positivity podcast. So we had that lined up, and it was literally just before the pandemic started. So it wasn't really a pandemic idea. I know a lot of amazing projects were born because of the pandemic, but regardless of the pandemic, we would have got it off the ground. But we're really grateful for it because it really kept us occupied through the pandemic. But we recorded our first podcast a couple of days before lockdown in Dublin. Sarah came to Dublin. We met up with Ryan, and the first interview, it was all very natural. I think it set the tone for the way things were going to go, and we actually had a great time. So we were like, yeah, let's keep going. And when the pandemic happened, I think 2 days later, they announced lockdown, which we thought would never happen. And it just gave us a chance to finally get ourselves together and find out how to get the podcast online. So that's kind of how it started.
That is just so beautiful to hear the story. Parts of what you just said I already knew. So, and the other part I just am now experiencing for the first time. Just to reverse back time a little bit, because I know you in a different way. So we know each other with Ash, as you were saying, from the travel club that we were all into, but I didn't know Sarah at this moment. And we were also part of the ambassador program, which is a voluntary part of this travel club, where we would really talk a lot about personal development and growth. And what I've noticed about you is exactly the positivity. It's just like, I have never seen a person so in alignment with their own mission, you know? You are creating a podcast, Partners in Positivity, and the first thing that I've noticed from you is positivity. So it's very like flawless, let's say so, in the flow, yes? And from there, so we just started communicating with Sarah just a few weeks ago. We met for the first time, but it felt like we are knowing each other since forever. The other thing I noticed is the connection that you have between each other. So you have found a way how you were developing yourself in your own personal journeys, but then you have found yourselves together, and you started doing this this project together. And my next question to you is, how was it natural for you to do it together, or you have had aspirations to do it separately? Was it like a project that you would consider and imagine only doing together or on your own?
Well, to be honest, I couldn't have done it without Sarah, even the tap that shit out events. So Sarah was organising events, and she knew I had this experience of helping people with alternative therapies, but I had never actually gone out there and decided to teach it to people in a group setting. So it was her mother and Sarah. Her mother was already a fan of tapping, and they were like, why don't you teach it? And I was like, oh no, I'm not confident. I can't do public speaking. I'm too embarrassed in front of a group. And after a couple of conversations with Sarah, anyway, Sarah just knocked that on the head immediately. And that's something that I never could have foreseen, because I could have had that same conversation with 100 people, but whatever level of security she gave me, or the words that she said, it just made me think, oh, maybe I can actually do this. So we done the events together, and they were great. So getting back to the question, yeah, I couldn't have done it without her. And even when it came to like putting the podcast online and the technical stuff, if I really wanted to, I could have done it, but it would have been hard work for me. But Sarah, I think we complement each other in different ways. So she was the one that kind of got all that type of stuff going. And then even my own confidence with my voice, or interviewing people, or knowing that my voice is out there in the world a couple of times, even now or at the beginning, where I'm like, oh my God, what was that? Or how did that sound? Sarah would always just be like, that was perfect. So for me, I feel like she's the stronger part of me, and I might not have done it on my own actually at all.
Such a nice thing to say. This is brilliant, actually, because we never had this conversation before until now. That's gorgeous. Thanks, Ash. The stronger part of me, oh stop, I never would have imagined you saying that, because I see you so strong. Aisling has done freelance hairdressing for 4 or 5 years, set up her own business, and has lived a brilliant lifestyle because she decided that that's what she wanted for herself, and she went after it. So I see Aisling as super, super strong. And on the side, she's all these other brilliant tools, especially for mental health. So she's so perfect for this podcast. So I couldn't imagine doing this with anyone else. And on top of that, to answer your question in short, there was no indication that we had any ideas of doing a podcast on our own individually beforehand. It just naturally came to be that we wanted to do it together from the get-go, and that's how it unfolded. So I think we also recognise that with any good small business, any good medium to large size business, you're not the only person on the team. You need help from other people if you want to actually serve an idea of yours and reach a broader market. So I think we knew 2 was always better than 1 in a way. But just to add to it, we're so educated in a way in personal development and the power of the mind, and we're bringing people onto the podcast, guests, to teach tools or for help people understand that there's sources of information across the planet that can help you change the structure of your mind if you want to think more positive. So for us, we prime ourselves with a birth story before we get into partners and positivity work. But part of that story is to remember where we came from, to know who we are now and what we can achieve. But there's a sentence in this story that we prime ourselves with, and it says something like, the yin yang is just fab. We talk about our talents and skills, but we remember that we actually complement each other in such a great way, and that's why the podcast works so well. And like Aisling mentioned, we made a clear decision at the beginning. Aisling was going to oversee social media, and I'm like, I I used to say to her, she's like the gold medalist in the Olympics of social media because she's so good at it compared to me. And then I was doing the editing and creating some of the content on Canva or whatever. So we happily took on roles and were responsible for them, and that worked. We weren't fighting over the same thing, to do. But we like what Aisling said, we complement each other very well, and I think that's what helped us stay consistent up till now.
Amazing. I'm so happy to hear that this is a topic that you have never discussed before, because it's interesting how the mind works, and we don't know what we don't know. Sometimes we might fall into the false realization that in order to start a project, we have to know it all first before we start. And that's most of the parts not true. And I love what you have created together, and that you didn't really have aspirations to do this podcast and this project on your own. So it's not like you had the idea and then, okay, why not do it together? But it's like the title of it, it's Partners in Positivity. It requires partners. It requires partnership. And it comes first before the positivity, which for me means something. So I wanted to ask you more, if we can dive deep into that, about partnerships and how. So we learned a little bit more about how it started, but you've never been in business together before, or you've never been in a such a wide and consistent and long-term project together before. So what are the things that you encountered during this journey of over a year as partners? How did you work together? Were there ups and downs? Was it all positive and light, or you have things that you can share that might help some others?
Yeah, so at the beginning we were together, but we were both living in separate cities in Ireland. So we were coming together for weekends at a time, but we weren't constantly together. Every day we would have a call, like let's say Monday to Friday when we first started the podcast, and we'd spend at least 2 hours together, and we'd decide what we were going to work on, who we're going to interview this week, what needs to be done, and have little agendas for what we're going to do each day of the week. So that was very easy, and it was great to see each other every day. Even when I became self-employed, I could never work behind a screen and just be by myself every day and not talk to people. I love people. I'm a hairdresser, so I've always dealt with people. So even when I came away from the salon and decided to be self-employed, I missed the girls. I missed having your little work family. So only because I had the clients and you become really good friends with them, I was able to do that. So having Sarah was really amazing. So when we were apart all that time and just coming together over weekends, we were saying we wanted more time together. And in spending a lot of time together, then we could be just with each other every day, all day, every day for 7 days in a row. But then we realised we need some time when we miss each other. Like we might have a couple of hours of space during a day, and then we come together and we work together. I don't think anything's ever a problem. We talk about everything as it comes up. I don't want to paint the picture in a toxic positivity type of way, but I feel like we don't really have any problems, or if we have problems, we address them pretty sharpish.
Yeah, great. So the question was about our partnership and how has it been over the last year and a half in terms of making decisions for the podcast, delivering every week and all of that. Yeah, so like Aisling said, from my point of view, I feel like that the level of synergy that we have is really good. And what I mean by that is that we know that together we can do more than we would individually. So we come together, we make decisions together, and we were clear from the get-go of what skills that we have to deliver the podcast, and we had full trust and faith in each other from moment to moment. Like even the very first podcast that we recorded, I wrote out the intro on the bus from Galway to Dublin, I felt spontaneously inspired to write this. We previously said, let's do the interview and then we'll decide on the intro or conclusion afterwards. But this just came to me, and we're both very supportive of each other. So immediately Aisling seen what I wrote and she was like, yes, let's use that. So anything that has happened in the last year and a half, whether we made a decision together or whether we were separate, we have this level of trust with each other. And that works really well. The other thing is, I'd say in 99% moments of positivity or crack or fun or everything that has gone well, because we were so in alignment with each other from the beginning in our previous partnership of doing the events. But in terms of any problems that we have throughout the podcast, we're very clear and open about it, and we do understand the expectations that we have for each other to log in every day and do the work. We're committed to the process, we're committed to the journey and to the service that we want to deliver. So we show up happy every day. And for me, I know from my own public speaking coach in business, compared to this, I nearly feel like I show up more because I'm representing someone else when I show up for myself. So I think about Aisling before I even do the work, that this is not just my baby, this is actually ours. And then if there's ever an issue with us, or if we're not feeling good about the podcast, we actively say things to each other like, do you want to take a break? Do you need a week off? Our spark isn't like a blaze of fire like it was a couple of weeks ago, so maybe something needs to change, and then we look into that. And even things like we bring up issues if we're comparing each other. Like we could have done an interview, I could be saying, oh my God, Aisling, you come up with great questions. I actually feel less than because I don't have the mind that you have. Or she might be like, you seem more confident than me. So even our issues we bring up, we talk through them and we help each other to resolve them, to continue on for the next day. So we've got a really good open communication system, and we have done from the get-go. And the other thing is about agreements and setting up businesses with people. I think we understood our level of expectation of each other of what was to happen from the beginning. So something didn't happen 6 months in where we said, oh, you should have done this, or I expected you to be on social media every single day. We understood our expectations of each other, and I think our communication level is very high. So it's worked really well, and it's still strong today.
Wow. Honestly, I am super impressed, but also it's like not possible to have those amazing results that you're having in terms of consistency, and so many created already episodes without you having this amazing communication you are having. Yeah. So here's the reason why I'm so interested into this subject. It's because, and I believe that it can bring value to others as well, because I see you on daily basis, not in a business manner, let's say, so not in a project manner. And the most interesting part for me is that there is pretty much no difference between you in the podcast and you outside of the podcast, which for me brings so much joy, because it's meaning that you are really extremely open and vulnerable and authentic. And that's so important to tap into our authenticity, so that we can bring on the surface the best part of ourselves, and actually the only part of ourselves, like our true self. Yeah. And sometimes I have seen people, whether they are on their own or in partnership, where during a conversation, during an activity, a specific activity, there will be some kind of synergy, but outside of it, the synergy is gone. So it looks more fake than anything else. And people start questioning, or an over-analytic mind like myself will start questioning, is it true, is it real, how these people are doing it, there must be something wrong. And with this normal tendency of the mind to go to the negativity, can you just share a little bit more about how you do handle, those situations in which you have things to say to each other? How do you say it to each other? I feel like communication wise, it's what we all need in this day and age, to be even better in communication. And maybe some concrete examples might help if you have any. Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually blown away. Thanks for that recognition. And it's rare that we have someone looking in at us from the outside. And thanks for your expression and what you think of us. Not everyone might have that that perspective of us, but thank you for that. For me, what I would say is certainly myself and Ashley met through a travel club. The travel club had a focus of personal development as well, ingrained in it. We actually met on a plane on a trip which included a personal development event. And even prior to that, I know that we were educating ourselves in mental health, in psychology, in human behavior, different things. So we were grounded in ourselves, I think, even before we met. But what I think is our greatest strength is we understand each other's personalities. And inside of corporate organizations and outside that, even with the travel club and the education that we got from those events, was about personality types. And there's a color code system which we actually match on 2 out of 4 of them in a big way. It's our predominant character traits, and I think that allows us to flow with each other. We're very aware of what makes us tick and then what annoys us as well. So I think for anyone that's looking to start up a partnership, like spending time to see, do you do have chemistry, is a good idea. Like what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What do you like to do? What do you not like to do? And that's a starting point at least. And there's so many different aspects of business and communications, like we talked before about expectations and all that sort of stuff. So you can really start from a strong place if you intend to do it that way. Some people jump in the deep end not knowing the depths of the person, but myself and Ash are friends. We spend so much time together. I know what I could do that would annoy her, and I mightn't do that. and she could do the same maybe, or whatever. But I think our understanding of each other was such at a high level beforehand that we have flowed into this really. But it was always a dream of mine to work on some sort of project with a friend, even since when I was in college. And a part of our flow is making decisions when you know it's the right time, and it was the right time for me. I know, starting that with Aisling, so I don't know what it was like for you.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I feel like it's a bit of a blind spot for us. I'm kind of thinking, why would you go into partnership with someone if you thought you were going to have conflict and stuff like that? But some people do go in blindly, like with relationships as well. Like, you never know what's going to happen with a person. I kind of feel like it's a bit like my mum and dad. They have a great relationship. They just get on with each other. I'm a bit like that. I just get on with people. I'm not really into conflict, and I feel like we're like that. We just get on with each other and we see the best in each other, and I don't really think there's any annoyances, or else, as Sarah said, you just don't do the things that annoy each other. So like I would never say to Sarah, oh, will you take over social media this week? Because she really just doesn't like social media all that much, although she did for 1 week while I took holidays, or 10 days. But I wouldn't really ask her to do stuff that I know she doesn't like doing. I think it's really important to know your person before you start. You know whether it feels right or not from the beginning, I think.
Beautiful. Well, congratulations on listening to your intuition and your feelings, because 50 episodes later, it's still on. Which reminds me to ask you about what is this extraordinary power that you have of being so consistent with this amazing project? You know that we see so many things happening around us, like people starting projects and they just quit or give up in the middle of it, or they will. Some people have struggled to even start something, but many times when we do start something, we fail at being consistent with it, and you are still here. Like it's so amazing, and I'm so grateful that you are consistent with it. So I wanted to know what is the key for your consistency.
So I think it brings me back to last year or when we first started, and I might have had the worry like, oh God, I wonder will we run out of people to interview? But we had a good idea that we might have had enough people to keep us going for a year, that we would both know enough people that would say yes. We would ask people and we do the interviews, and that would be great. So then if we're planning future interviews, then sometimes I could say to Sarah, I haven't really got anybody in mind. Have you got somebody in mind? And she might have 5 people on a list. And then it might just naturally happen that I'd find someone on social media or someone had come into my mind and I'm like, oh my God, we need to interview this person. So that's the consistency. It was kind of natural and it just comes like, and it definitely is good that we have each other because it doesn't all depend on the one person to have the idea.
Yeah, and I would say we wouldn't have extraordinary power of consistency. I know you mentioned that a second ago, because I think when you fall in love with something, like any good relationship, you don't want to lose it. And that's how we feel about each other, but we feel that towards the purpose of the project as well. And even the other day, my father rang me from home and there was another suicide, young guy my age in our town. And with every conversation that we have of someone that's struggling, that's having a bad day, that's feeling anxious, that's feeling depressed, and we know throughout your life we've so many ups and downs, but I think every conversation we have with people where we listen fully to them and we know that they need some sort of lift, that's what the podcast is there for. And I think that's one of the core reasons that keeps us consistent, that there's a broadcast delivering content every week that you can tune into to make you feel even 1% better. And yeah, I think what Steve Jobs said after he was fired from Apple and he went on to build Next, he loved what he did. And he said, even when you're rejected, you still love what you do. So I think even when we think we're running out of people, we still love what we do. So we find a way, and yeah, we just take the steps down that road, you know.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sarah. And I think Andy Manning said when we interviewed him on the podcast, be the light or be the person that you were looking for when you were younger. And when I was suffering with anxiety or depression, I was always looking online for people, but most of the time they were American or like they weren't really Irish. I'd be watching YouTube videos and listening to audiobooks, and I used to think to myself, like, I'd love to have somebody Irish to listen to, maybe that has had the same thing. But I just think we can be 2 people for people in Ireland or elsewhere that might need us, like, you know.
Thank you so much for being so open with everybody. I feel like this is really helping a lot of people to realize what it is to create a project in positivity by being your pure natural self and positive self, which is amazing. And I have this thought in my mind about the people that you are interviewing. But I don't consider myself, for example, as, a person who has achieved something, special that, like an Einstein who have discovered this or that, or, in my mind, very, very often from before, it stays stuck in my mind that in order for you to be interviewed or to share your thoughts, you have to have extreme levels of achievement. So my question to you is that I've noticed that the people who have interviewed are exceptional, but they're exceptional not solely based on their achievements, professional-wise, for example, or business-wise, or something that is so visible and not noticeable to so many others. But I've noticed that you have this amazing skill to see the positiveness in people, to see what every single human being can bring to humanity, and to be able to extract that and put it up front, which is an amazing skill that not everybody has. So I want to ask you, how do you find your people? Since you were talking about, I'm scared and worried that we're going to run out of people, but there are so many out there. How do you attract those people? What are the people that you want to have in your podcast?
Yeah, that's really important, actually. We've talked about this before, and just because a person is famous, it doesn't mean that they're the only ones worthy of an interview. We're all human, we've all gone through stuff, and we can all help each other. So just in your day-to-day conversations with people, if you ask them the right questions, like everyone has been through something, and if they're willing to be open about it and have that conversation, we believe that they can really help. So yeah, it's just people that we notice. We literally fall in love with people all the time and their stories, and maybe we do focus on the more positive aspects, or like we really kind of look for the stuff that they've overcome. Like Mike Joy said on episode 12, me and Sarah listened to that together this morning, but at one point of his life he was an alcoholic, and he's not now for over the past 8 years. So I'm sure there were times in his life where he's hurt people through his alcohol and everything, but now he's overcome that and turned his life around. So we're just really interested in, and we really just have huge admiration of someone that has been able to come from that place and then get to the other place. And he's just an amazing person, and it's one of the best podcasts we've ever had, listening to him, and we just really admire people.
We do fall in love with people. I agree totally with what Aisling said. And there's an Irish singer called Hosier. He's very famous, and one of the lines in his song is, "We fall in love a little bit every day with someone new." So I definitely think that me and Ash, we naturally fall in love with people on a daily basis. People we meet in the street, people we smile at, receive a wave from, and it's absolutely genuine to our core. We know that there's a balance in everyone of negative and positive, and the purpose of it being called positivity and extracting the greatness, extracting the best, extracting the genius from the people is the purpose of the podcast. And we do feel like our work is even done bringing someone onto the show like yourself to have an opportunity to express yourself publicly. It's a huge achievement for your life to be on that sort of a stage. Regardless of how far we go with this, we don't have a huge listenership yet, but we're so grateful, and we intend for it to go far because we want people to hear voices like you, Sofia, and everyone else, because we believe in people so much. But it takes me back to, I remember being in a company years ago, and there were people gossiping about someone new that came into the organisation, that they were annoying or whatever comments people make, and I cannot engage in that. So I remember someone came up to me complaining one day, and I just said, sit with that person, they're beside you, you've no choice over where you're sitting. for the time being and wait until you see something that you like in the person, because it's bound to happen. And I remember a couple of weeks later, the people were best friends, and all of the complaining dissolved. Nobody was gossiping anymore about this particular person, and I was so happy. But I remember just always having that inside me, that there's good in everyone, and it might take a person to bring it out in them, or they are naturally going to return back to positivity eventually anyway, in their own path. But we know that there's an endless amount of people on the planet, 8 billion, and we believe in people. So their stories, everyone's story is powerful.
Beautiful. So, if you are randomly walking on a Sunday on the streets, watch for 2 positive balls of energy that you might meet on the streets. Oh, it's beautiful. I can just imagine that happening already. All right. So, coming to the end of our podcast, I would like to ask you: is there any question that you have an answer to, that you want to give your answer to right now?
The last thing I want to add is, I know for sure from my own experience, and also from experience other people in their passionate paths of life, is that you can find yourself to be negative a lot of the time when you're in a job or you're doing something that you don't like, and that is not your true personality. It's not you all of the time. But sometimes it's very difficult, depending on your circumstance, to get out of a job or to change direction or to understand what your strengths and talents are to move in a better direction for yourself. But for the last year and a half with the podcast, I know my positivity levels have increased a lot, because I know I'm doing something that fulfills me, that makes me happy on a day-to-day basis. And for me, because I've had so many jobs, I was able to have a good attitude in work and appreciate the job and receive my income at the end of the month or the end of the week and be grateful for that. But this is a different level of positivity that I know everyone can reach if they give some time and effort to think about how precious their life is, first of all, but secondly, to see that there's some sort of traits or talents or skills that could be of service to the world that you will actually feel so fulfilled and satisfied and happy doing. But you need to look into yourself for that, or seek out help in a coach or whatever it may be. And the podcast has brought me so much more positivity doing what I want to do. So I think my final note would be for people, if you're not in that place already and you think you're anyway negative, that there is other routes and other options, but you're deserving of giving that time to yourself to seek that out, basically.
Very good. I think the question I would have is, like, if someone wants to create something, it doesn't matter if you think you're going to get paid for it, if you think you won't get paid for it, or what's going to happen with it, or where it's going to go. If something feels right and you have this thing inside you that you so much want to give to the world, whatever platform you decide, or you want to sing more, you want to dance more, whatever it is, just find a way and find your people and go and give it to the world, because it doesn't matter really the result of it. Like, we keep getting this message over and over this week. We know from people that have went into business and they thought that when they got their business off the ground, or when they hit a certain level of income, that was going to make them happy. But actually it didn't. Jim Carrey is a good example of that as well. He says, I wish that everyone could get rich and famous to know that that's not the answer, or not what's going to make them happy. So the main thing that's ever going to give you happiness is you sharing your creativity with the world, and you expressing yourself in the way that you want to express yourself. So that's the currency of happiness. That's the currency of success. It doesn't matter how famous you get from something or not famous. It's just the level of joy that you feel while you're doing it. We also met someone today that they were dealing with people that are selling a mansion for €6 million, and they said that, you know, what they noticed was they're just a normal couple, and unfortunately the guy got cancer and he had his own cancer battle, and now they're in a position where they're selling this big mansion and he's gotten over his cancer, but all he wants to do is get rid of the house and go travel and experience the world. So it wasn't really about making all that money and buying that mansion. He just wants to live life and experience it like the rest of us. Yeah, so that's what I would say. If you have something inside you that you want to give to the world, just give it, because it's going to make you happy. It doesn't matter what people think of it or how far it goes or doesn't go. You'll be happy that you've done it. You'll be happy in comparison to being in a state of pure regret when you're about 80 and you're like, God, I wish I had just done that, you know? And another question that hasn't been asked, and I'm like, no, I want this question, is...
Yes, so another question, just to wrap things up, last but not least, partners in positivity means partnerships, but partnerships might be more than two people. And I've recently understood that your team has expanded to one more person that definitely is making an impact. So, Ash, can you share more about this person?
Yeah, we just want to give a big shout out to Daron Harty, Sarah's brother, who recently has come on board, and he's been our editor, but he's much more than an editor. He's helping us with everything. So we decided to put the podcast on YouTube. He's fixing our YouTube channel for us. It doesn't matter what we ask him, because we work so closely with each other. Now we have another person if we need to bounce questions off, and he's just so sound and nice, and he's given us new ideas and inspiration, and he's taken the job from Sarah of editing for 3 or 4 hours, and now he's actually doing a job that he enjoys, and it's great to have him. I love the music that he's added at the back of the podcast. Whatever he did, he's a wizard, and we just want to say thanks so much, Daron.
Beautiful. Thank you, Daron. So just to add something at the end, as Abraham Hicks is saying, that it's all about the journey, that, you know, when you see a possibility to travel, for example, and the idea of traveling is you go from point A to point B and then you go back to point A, so you are just making a tour and coming back, and you can just watch yourself and say, okay, so I'm at point A, the end of the trip is again at point A, so why should I move? I'm already in my house, you know, the beginning and the end of the whole trip is my house, so why even move? It's exactly because of the journey itself, because of all the things that we're going to learn throughout these moments in time, throughout the people that we're going to meet. And that would be really my last question to you, ladies. And I'm going to leave you to wrap your own podcast and episode. I love that. Is to, throughout your journey of 1.5 years and 50 plus episodes, what is it that one thing that you have learned for yourself, that you know that you have grown and learned thanks to the podcast, that you could never ever have learned if it wasn't for the podcast, for example?
I think the entirety of the podcast has helped me recognize who I am, and also Ashley, because we're pretty much the same person at times. But we've had people who have shared with us who have very interesting, very interesting stories to share with the world. And at some stage in their life, they would love to have the confidence to speak that out, because they know their message is important, and they've told us that when that time comes, they'll be in touch with us. They'd love to be on the podcast. And I've realised through that, and from the people that we've had on as guests and experience that we've had in the warm-up interview and afterwards, that we create a beautiful environment where people feel not judged, safe, comfortable, confident to speak out, which is a huge, huge thing for nearly everyone across the planet, getting that opportunity to be in the limelight and be who you are in front of a large audience. So I'm glad that we're providing this space. I'm so happy about that. And that's one thing that I learned. I didn't know that that's what we were going to offer.
So I learned that there are actually a few people out there that want to listen to us. And it doesn't matter if it's small numbers or big numbers. We get really nice feedback, and I believe it reaches the people that it's supposed to reach. It's not going to be for everyone, but if someone's on that journey and they want to tune into a bit of positivity, like one example, I know Miss Sofia standing here in front of me said to me last week that she was a bit off, her mood was a little bit off, and she listened to one episode to get back in the zone. And she just said that the podcast made her feel better. So if that's one thing that the podcast can do, then that's amazing, because when me and Sarah started out by doing the Tap That Shit Out events, that was just a one-time event. It wasn't recorded. I'm sure the people got to take away good things from going to an event, but at least the podcast is here online, whether it's in the middle of the night and somebody can't sleep, or they're on the bus on the way home from work, they've had a tough day, or whatever it is, that we're available online now 24/7 if anyone ever wants to tune in. And that's what I learned. Some people like to listen to us, and some people feel better from listening. So, Sophia, thanks so much for this great idea that you had today, and for offering to interview us. I know you've been doing your own podcast inside of your own business. It's not public to the world, but you've been doing a great job and really impacting lives in your own sphere. But thanks so much for coming outside and into the world and being a guest on Partners in Positivity last week, and now giving all this time and actually being in a state of pure joy for the whole time, and the time you gave us before we sat down to do this interview, to make sure that our intentions were pure and it came from a great place. I love how curious you are, and I love how you managed to get the things out of us that we needed to say today. So thanks so much.
There's very little else that I can add on to everything Aisling said, because I believe that to be true as well. And the only thing I would say is that as much as people have said that they feel stronger in our belief of them, the people we've had on the podcast, the people that we've helped in terms of positivity, we also need that strength as well. And sitting here across from you, I can tell by your posture, your eyes, how you speak, your tone of voice, that you have a full belief in us as a partnership and in what we're doing for the world and how we want to serve. So I feel uplifted just by being in your company, and I'm so grateful to have an hour of your time where you actually accepted to do something fantastic, interview us as a change, to bring something new to the podcast. So thanks. This has been so refreshing, and we love being able to share our own voices as much as we listen to others as well. Thank you so much. And listeners, I hope you enjoyed this unique podcast. Congratulations, well done. Pat yourself on the back. You're officially now a partner in positivity with us. If this is your first episode, we're so grateful. If this is your 40th episode, we're equally as grateful for your ears, for your heart, for taking this time out for yourself and committing to your own positive mental health journey. Our intention for this podcast is for you to feel a little bit better afterwards. So we hope you take some time now to check in with yourself. How did you feel before? how do you feel now? And we've definitely done our job if you feel a little bit better, and especially if you want to come back for more next week. If you do want to support us, we actually have a Ko-fi donation page. It's ko-fi.com/partners in positivity. We really value the work that we're doing. We know there's so much positive and negative in the world, and we want to contribute to people feeling their best. So we appreciate all of the donations we've had so far and welcome any more that are on the way. Thank you in advance. Also, if you got something of value from this and you want to share with friends or family to add to this trend of positivity in the world, we would love to be tagged in any posts on social media. You know where to find us. Other than that, guys, have an incredible week ahead, and we look forward to feeding you some more nourishment for that beautiful mind, that beautiful garden of yours next week.